June, get ready. You're going to your auntie's.
I don't want to go to my auntie's.
You're only going to be there a few hours.
No, I don't want to go there because my cousin always messes with me.
Tell his mama.
Welcome to Mind, Health, and Wellness with LaJune. Oh man, you guys, we have an amazing guest today. I've known you since 2014. Man, I've known you for a long time. um, she is a ex-coworker of mine, but now she is a licensed clinical professional counselor, breaking the silence and creating voices in her passion and a mission. Welcome, Kemah Gbolokai. Thank you for being a part of this. I know next month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I love that part, as I was telling you before we started, about breaking the silence and creating a voice and creating passion, because a lot of women don't create that passion for themselves. They feel
Right.
like they have to do this, and this, but they don't make room for themselves.
Right.
So, can you give a background on yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you, LaJune. This has been an honor to just even be in the front, right? Because I'm usually in the background, in the silence, with everybody, the silent people. I love working behind the scenes, but it's so great to finally come in front and kind of lead. God calls you for different things. And, as you said, this is my passion, breaking the silence. Being able to have a voice. Right now, Black women are being, on the hunt. They hunting us. And, I just feel like this is the time to break that silence. And so, again, my name is Kemah Gbolokai. I am a licensed professional counselor, nationally certified counselor as well in the state of Maryland. What can I say about myself? I am a mother of 3 beautiful daughters. This year, I got my middle one, my little mini me, graduating this year. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus, for that. Yes. And I got one more to go. So this is just almost coming full circle for me. So this is wonderful. Always about legacy and putting things out there to leave that. And I think, starting here with you, this is a great way to, begin and leave my legacy. But I have been doing this work for over 20 years. I started working with males in the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation in Montgomery County, the correctional system. And I found it to be interesting, seeing the revolving door, as we would say. People coming in, people coming out, and I'm just looking like, what is going on? Especially for our Black kings, what's going on? What is needed? And, working with adult women as well, what is needed? I'm seeing mothers and, children coming to visit their, parents. And I'm just like, something has to give. So as I come full circle around the mountain, I'm like, let me get my degree. I think, being in the spaces with people that look like us, I thought was very important, because what I was seeing working in the field of corrections, there weren't too many clinicians working with people that look like us. And for me, I was like, how do they expect to connect? Right? How do they expect to be able to understand and show empathy, compassion, I'm all about the historical stuff. Like, we know our history, our African American history, and we know that there's some people that come in to save, right? And then there's always that alternative motive. And then we really never get down to understanding the whys or understanding who we are, that identity of who we are. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go start at the beginning. So as I ventured out of working in the adult corrections, I went ahead and started working with youth with emotional dysregulations for the state of Maryland Department of Health. And I was like, you know what? I can start here because I think I can plant the seed and watch it grow. Because I know that like I said, I have 3 daughters, and and as a single mother, I know that is also a barrier, and I realized that in a lot of the youth that I started working with. So that became my mission. Let me start with the young people, let me start planting these seeds. Let them know that, hey, you can become me one day, right? And in the midst of all of that, I am also too a survivor. I'm a domestic violence survivor. And so that was even more of a reason for me to work with this population. So as I'm working with the young people, I'm finishing up grad school. I'm pregnant and with my last one, and I am going through it, like emotionally, physically, mentally going through it as I'm trying to finish this master's program. And I was able to do my internship at the Montgomery County Abused Persons Program. And that kind of just opened up my eyes because I started working at the domestic violence shelter for Montgomery County. And it just brought me to a whole nother passion. I was just like, oh, this is just amazing. Like, look at where God is sending me on all of these many places to see what and where I can eventually plant or, sprinkle my seeds to plant and watch them grow. And I started working at the domestic violence shelter while I was doing my internship at the Abused Persons Program, while I was also working at the Monroe School in DC for, as well as internship and practicum as well. And I finished my master's program, which was wonderful. And I ended up staying on at the domestic violence shelter. And I moved my way up and ended up being the residential coordinator there. And it just allowed me to tap into the voices that we don't hear, that are in the community that I serve, and that is Montgomery County. And, just working with the children, working with the women, being able to provide them with a voice to advocate. A lot of them didn't even know how to advocate for themselves. And we know that, with sexual assault, we know that with domestic violence, those are all power and control. That's all about power and control. And, just understanding that dynamic was so important for not just for me as a survivor, but also for the people that I was sprinkling seeds for. And so that journey became such enlightening, just hearing the women and children that I touched along the way, just, brought joy. Right. And, there's some that were still moving, but that was okay because that allowed me to say, hey, I'm with you. We're going to be on this journey together. And, that is how my focus came into be when I connected with Onyx Therapy Group. When I tell you about Onyx Therapy Group, dynamic group of women and men, but it was founded on the principles of, women, Black-owned women, LGBTQ plus, and it has been a phenomenal experience. Being able to be my authentic self and connect with people in dialogue, right? Therapy is a journey. right? And it's about dialogue. It's about being able to have that healthy conversation and also to be held accountable, not feel judged, but allow you that space to say, feel, do whatever it is that you want to do in that space, in that time that you've allotted for me to be in your presence. And we may do it again next week, or we may do it again in 2 weeks, but we're on this journey together. And that's how I look at therapy. Therapy is about a journey of healing. And I always say to my clients, let me know when you're ready to go on this, this healing journey. And I always thank my clients for allowing me to be in their space, because we know all energy ain't always good energy.
Yes.
Okay. And so, but, speaking in that authenticity, speaking in that transparency, and speaking in all things truth, is super important to me. So it kind of brought me here, kind of brought me back. So then it brings me back to saying, I'm just honored just to be able to be in the front. Because normally I'm in the back, behind the scenes, helping out, whatever I could do. I always tell people, I'll do this for free, because I just love helping people. I love pouring into people. And I do get poured into. Trust and believe, I do get poured into. And I think that's one of the things that I I stress in a good way with my clients, with my peers, as well as colleagues. Outside of Onyx, I also work for the state of Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. I'm the behavioral health supervisor for the female population. I'm a big advocate. My young ladies, me, you, could have been here, right? This is the mirror of reflection. So I'm working with my young ladies that are in the juvenile justice system here in Maryland. And trust and believe me when I tell you I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Connecting, learning, understanding, because they're from all over the state of Maryland. And they're younger. They were me. They were you. And so, how do we nurture and pour into them and let them know that, hey, you too can be me when you get older, because I'm going to need you to be helping me when I'm, a little bit older. I'm going to be looking at you to come and wheel me in my wheelchair. But then again, I ain't going to be in no wheelchair now. But, I'm going to be out there, cutting the rug with them too. But letting them know that, hey, everything that's happened to us does not define who we are. And I need them to know that every day. And I reinforce that every day. My clinical team, we reinforce that every day. So it's a joy for me. So this right here, when I say a passion, girl, this is a passion. This is my calling. And I thank God for allowing me to have this voice and you for having this platform, for allowing me to be here in this space to just connect with people. I started my little fake little blog on social media.
It is not fake. It is not fake, because it is you giving yourself and discussing things, and which is hard for a lot of people to put themselves on a camera to talk and post it, and not worrying about being judged or what people say or whatever. That takes a lot of courage. A lot of people cannot do it. I had my deceased cousin's best friend on, and they have been talking for years about her doing something like you
Right,
did.
right.
And she, was like, no, no, that's not for me. That's not for me. I had her on for my cousin's birthday in December. And she just, it was a 2 hour segment. We talked about health, we talked about grief, we talked about mental health, we talked about, my cousin, we talked about so many things. So she's going to be back on May 11th, which is the anniversary death of my cousin.
Okay.
I was like, hey, let's do something. Let's talk about life after her, what that looked like
Mm,
for both of us since she's been gone for almost a year.
right.
So I think with that, sometimes God pushes us and
Mm,
says, your voice needs to be heard. People
right.
need to see what you are saying.
Right.
So get out there. And that has been for me since this year I started back. I did a couple of things last year, but this year I started back full circle because God kept saying to me, you are here for a reason. And that's the
Right.
same for you. You're here for a reason. You have
Hmm.
a voice. I get that you had your stuff going on or whatever, but it's time for you to get back out there.
Right.
And when I see your stuff, because I told you I saw you, and God was like, her. And I was like, okay, God, I was like, well, let me, work some things out because I knew every year, well, I didn't do it last year because I was going through stuff, but typically every year I do something for Sexual Assault
Hmm.
Awareness Month. I do something for women's health. I do something for mental health because that's how you and I met in a mental
Right.
health clinic working at PSI at the time.
Right. Right.
Um, and just pouring into women. So I was like, okay, well, let me send her a message. I sent you the message and you responded back. I was like, all right, cool. So, and I was like, well, I want a one on one. I also want you for Mental Health Month because that's what you do, that's your
Right.
specialty. But, just seeing how consistent you are with your posts daily. That's something I'm still working on is consistency because I'm still working on stability for
Right.
myself,
Right.
but I always try to make sure I am, posting something. I've been posting more now, trying to make a little more time with that.
Right.
But, seeing your consistency, seeing your passion, just hearing your passion during this time. When I did my live on Friday, we were talking about healing, being able to talk about our sexual trauma
Mm,
and not being triggered by it and just seeing you now discussing domestic violence trauma that you've experienced and being able to be put where you willingly went to work with individuals who have experienced domestic violence. That's called healing because everybody can't do it. I've had
right.
women who recently reached out from my post of posting about my sexual assault experience and saying this lady said she's 72 and she's still
Right.
having nightmares. So, if you can kind of talk about what your healing process looked like after, experiencing domestic violence. My sister was also a person who experienced domestic violence
Right.
in her marriage. So, and we just don't realize and understand how we pass this along to our kids because we try to do it in the room and close the door. The walls are thin. Kids
Oh, yes, they are. They're very thin.
still hear you being cursed out, you being hit on, they can still hear it. And it's
Yeah.
not they feel energy, they know when things aren't
Yep.
right. And we're not doing a due diligence to our kids because we're thinking, oh well they don't know. They know.
Oh, they know. The children know. The children know. And I mean, and I appreciate you saying that. So so behind so behind my post is going to go into this healing, right? It's going to answer the question of how did I get to this healing. So one of the things that I have been actively working on with my clients is creating a habit, a healthy habit, right? So in order to, you know, let them know, hey, this is how you do it, I had to do it myself, right? I had to go through the trenches and figure out, well, what I'm over here talking to them in dialogue and sessions about creating healthy habits, and I don't even got my own healthy habit. So this started last year July, I had went to a conference down in Tampa. I went to go visit my best friend, and I put on this dress to go to this conference, and I walked in the room, and it was a group of men because it was I'm in the sorority. I'm in Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So I went to my brother's conference, the Sigmas, Phi Beta Sigma conference down in Tampa, their conclave. And when I walked in the room, I felt like I was a piece of meat.
Mm.
I just felt disgusted. Like, so when you talk about all those triggers and everything, it just came like, shoo, like came right back to me. And I had to leave. I stayed there like for maybe 15 minutes. And I said, I gotta go. One of my brothers was like, where are you going? I was like, I'm gone. Thanks for the invite. I'm going back to my room. I can't do it. He was confused, like, what is going on? So I said, I can't. This can't be who I am. Like, I walk with confidence. I'm a KGB diva. That's my alter ego. I'm the KGB diva. Okay, how was this even possible? It triggered me. Smells, the lighting, um, the reflection of when I took a picture, how people were looking at me. Again, all of these negative cognitions in my head, I was distorted. I thought I wasn't enough. I felt, disgusted, like hands were on me. And I was just like, absolutely not. I said, I have to do something about this. This cannot be. I've worked very hard to where I am. I got to give myself grace. I've done a lot. I don't always give myself a pat on the back for my accomplishments because, again, I'm always in behind the scenes. I said, no, absolutely not. If I'm going to say this is who I am and I'm going to walk with confidence and my head held high, I'm going to walk the walk. So I started this countdown, and it started with um, I was getting ready for a 5K run in September. So this happened in July of last year. So I came back and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start walking. I said, I'm going to get out here and walk. I'm going to get out here and walk. And I said, you know what? How am I going to hold myself accountable? You know what? Social media going to hold me accountable. Because if this was back in the 90s, we ain't had no daggone cell phones and social media. It would have been our friends going out with us and walking. But, again, I got out there and I walked. I put my music on because music is soothing. Music is my coping mechanism. I encourage music very, I'm very creative and I like to, again, not do things the normal way because there is no cookie cutter fit for everybody. We're all different, so the way I may show up and do interventions, because I am EMDR certified, so and DBT certified, which is dialectic behavioral therapy. Um, I'm trauma informed, CBT. I'm certified as well. So all those little acronyms and certifications and modalities, but I wanted to shift it to how it fits people that look like us, right? So I've been very intentional. Intentional is my favorite word. I've been very intentional about how I show up and how I implement all of these modalities that we learn in school that are really not for the people that look like us, right? Or made by the people that look like us. And so in order to be cultural competent, I got to meet my people where we at, right? And, use the skill how we do it. So with that, came back, put on my headset, made a bomb playlist of all my R&B hits because I'm such a hopeless romantic. And I got to walking. And I said, day one of my journey of creating a habit. And day two came. I said, oh man, I got to do this again. Oh my God. I said, I got up and I expressed that in my struggle, right? I said, day two, I'm at it again, everybody. Day two, I'm out here walking. Oh my God, I didn't know this hill could be this, and it became fun. It became like interesting, I was like, hey, this is wonderful. Then I, started not just the validation from others. It was me. I started feeling good. I was like, oh, I gotta go. I was like, oh, I gotta do my little walk, my little mile walk, and it just became the norm. And then when I stopped after I had did the 5K, because it was almost like a documentary of me getting to the 5K and saying, yay, I crossed the finish line. I did it. I won the medal. That was great. And then I said, what's next? People were like, would reach out to me. It was like, what happened to your post? You were inspiring, you know, you were saying stuff that I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. And I was like, really? They were like, yeah, like we miss seeing you. Cause I'll go on a hiatus from social media. That's another thing. Again, coping mechanism. Sometimes you got to break away, regroup, hibernate, as my therapist. Yes, I'm a therapist, but I do have a therapist. As my therapist would say, hibernate, take a little hibernation for a bit. So sometimes I'll do that from time to time and then, show up proof of life, I'm here because we all need that time to regroup and fill our cups back up. So again, being very intentional. And so I started blogging again this year. And this time I'm counting down to 45 because I'll be 45 May 21st. Whoop, whoop, Gemini's in the house. So I started the countdown. So today I'm on day 58. Back on that journey because I started working out because I'm like, I got to be intentional about my health as I'm going into this new chapter in my life. As Black women, we don't really take the time to love on ourselves and our health, right? We have all of these. When have you ever heard of the word perimenopause, right? No, you heard of menopause, but you don't hear of perimenopause, right? And it's that transition period, right? Right before that next big chapter in your life. And there's a lot of things that we as Black women are going through, right? When we talk about the mortality rate in Black maternal health, right? We just had that week. And then some of the POSC,
the
poly, yeah,
syndrome where it causes hair growth
and all of those things, right? All of those things that we don't know about our bodies hormonally, like that we really don't take the time to talk to our OBGYNs or talk to our doctor. So that's that holistic part. That's that wellness part, right? Because holistically, we are a whole being. We can start with the mental. You can come and see me about the mental, and we can talk about how we're going to reframe our negative thoughts to positive thoughts. But guess what? I'm also going to talk about with you. I'm going to talk about that health part. Have you checked in with your primary care physician to talk about some of these symptoms that you're displaying? Or, you're talking about you're getting headaches and, you're getting hot, or you are growing hair in places, or your stomach is hurting on certain times, because those somatic symptoms and requests and things, those are also part of your health. That's your overall health. And so as a Black woman, I have to, again, how do I create habits or a habit and demonstrate that for the people that are coming to see me as clients, and that the young ladies that I'm seeing here in the detention setting? How do I create that? I'm showing up. I'm being consistent. So right now, like I said, I'm on day 58 of my journey to my spring series countdown to 45. And that's part of my healing, right? Acknowledging me as an individual, my identity. Who am I? Who is Kemah Gbolokai? Who is she? I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a sister. I'm not just a friend, a significant other, a partner, a wife. I am me. I'm somebody. But who is that, right? And so exploring who I am, that's self-love. That's been what I've been talking about in this countdown to 45 is loving on me for who I am. I'm not trying to get super skinny because I ain't that. That's not me. That's not my body makeup. But I want to be healthy enough so that I can see that legacy my children grow. I want to be here for my grandchildren. I'm coming up this year. Mother's Day is coming around the corner. My mother passed away back in 2021.
Oh wow.
My very best friend, that was my rock, my fire, you know, all things, right? That changed me too. So I am dealing with grief, and so hence, I got to see a therapist, well, I started my therapy journey, because there were some things of understanding. And even with that, I'm walking now in my faith even harder, with God, that connected me back to Him. Not just, understanding of the why did this happen to me? Why did my mom have to pass away? You know, um, all of those different things, but it's part of healing. And so knowing who I am as a person, um, is helping me get to the healing part. I was telling one of my good friends. She said, I asked people, before I get in a relationship with them, have they been healed? And I said, how you gonna ask somebody if they healed? How is somebody going to even know if they healed? Because some people don't even know what healed is, right?
Oh, what it looks like.
Or what that looks like, because anybody can say I'm healed. Yeah, I'm healed. Yeah, but do we really know what that is? Me as a therapist, I'm not healed. I'm healing. I'm on that journey for healing because I'm reaching to that self-actualization. You know how we always talk about the pyramid and stuff.
Right.
We want to get to self-actualization, and get there. I'm on that journey to healing. So no, I'm not healed. However, I'm being intentional about making active choices that are healthy for me, my children, and everybody that's around me, whoever I'm involved with. And so I think it's important to know that healing is a journey, and it's something that you have to intentionally do every day. Ask yourself that question: who's pouring into you today? How are you feeling today? And this is you talking to yourself, right? What's going on? How am I feeling today? I'm not great today. And being honest, right? I've been seeing posts, little memes and posts talk about you got to be something about a lie. Um, how can you be truthful when you're not even truthful to your therapist? And I'm like, is that a word? Because how are we really going to get down to the nitty gritty if you can't even be truthful in a therapy session? Because that therapy session is about you. So that's really you being truthful to yourself. So that's you looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I got an issue, or I have a concern that I really truly want to work on. I want to be healthy. I want to see the next 15, 20 years from now. I want to be able to strut my stuff. 5 years, you invited to, because that's going to be the big shebang. 50, it's going to be a whole party. Okay. It's going to be a whole to do. But again, how, check in with self and recognizing those signs, those triggers. Like I told you before, walking in that room full of men, that triggered the hell out of me. I thought I was like, ooh, a spoon coon. And then I realized, like, nah, some things in my mind are, some negative doubts started coming back. Um, but I'm in a space now that I'm intentional. I'm working on me every day. And I'm here to support who's ever going to allow me to support them on their journey every single day. Because I'm human too. Yes, I may have all the ABCDs after my name, and I may have went to school and have a little education and all of that wonderful stuff, right? But I'm still human. I still bleed just like you bleed. I still cry when things are sad. I still express when things are hurt. I still get angry. But acknowledging those things is going to help me heal and be a better version of myself. So if I was to write a letter to my younger self right now, if I could, do that, how we, do those things and those little activities, I would let my younger self know that you are going to be amazing. You are amazing. You are going to accomplish so many things because you are accomplishing so many things. So everything that you're going through now is a reflection of your, not just your resilience and strength, but it's a reflection of who you are. And although this may not be the road that you wanted to choose, you are going to come out. So at the end, better than you have ever been. In school, I always used to say there's always light at the end of the tunnel because there is always light at the end of the tunnel. You ain't going to stay in darkness forever. And so one of my favorite quotes is, we got to learn to dance, in the rain. Let the storm going to come. But dancing in the rain, oh, that is amazing. Because that means we can cope. We can move. We can radically accept, DBT terminology, we can radically accept the reality. And I'm not going to fight it anymore. I don't like it. It's intense sometimes. But now I know how to move through the rain. And as I'm moving through the rain, it looks so wonderful and beautiful. So that's healing for me.
I can definitely say I love that the self-awareness, because a lot of people aren't self-aware. You walked in that room and you were self-aware. This is bringing something up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to exit, where many people would have suffered and stayed in that space and not understood this is coming from some type of trauma or abuse I experienced.
Yep.
So I applaud you on your self awareness and deciding my mental health, my emotional and physical health is more important for me to walk out of this space,
Yep.
which a lot of people don't do. And you mentioned about, you talk to your clients about health. Can you kind of go into from your own experience of being a clinician, how mental health and physical health and emotional health is in alignment? Because I don't think a lot of people understand how those things work
Right.
together.
Right.
They think,
No.
oh, well, it's my mental health. And it's like, well, it's also what you put in your body, what you're drinking, what you're eating,
Come
those
on.
things, your thought process, that all affects your mental and your physical and emotional health.
Right.
But from a clinician standpoint, I'm
Yes.
I'm just a board certified health coach and all that other.
We love you, okay? Because you know what? We love you. I'm just gonna say that. I just know that, for me, like I expressed before, like you getting a headache. What does that mean to you when you getting a headache? Right? Have you checked your blood pressure? Are you drinking enough fluid? What foods are you eating? Right? Are you even allergic after, for a long period of time, you know, we didn't know that gluten was in food and that a lot of us are allergic to gluten,
Yep, I have
right?
food sensitivity or
And you have
intolerance
this
to
gluten
it.
soup. Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah. Mm.
Didn't even know like all these macaroni and cheeses. And let me tell you, I do make a bomb macaroni and cheese, by the way. But, eating all this macaroni and cheese and these processed foods, not realizing that a lot of these things are affecting us, our health, which is in tune affecting how we think and move. When we think about our young people in ADHD, my youngest daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, and she's on the spectrum, right? But highly functioned, right? Sometimes it's hard to like get the education system and people to even want to do um, testing. And because I'm in the field, you wasn't going to get by me because I know my rights, I'm well informed, and I do read. So one of the things I tell parents: read, right? Ask questions. Don't let the stuff bypass you. But anyway, with that being said, as I'm advocating for my daughters to get services for her, they're like, oh, she just, she has ADHD, so we're going to just, that's all we can accommodate and things like that. And I was like, but her handwriting, you know, you know, what is her handwriting, her speech, you know, if she's not seeing things like what is it that I need to do? Like, you guys tell me, I want to be the parent now. I just want to be the parent. So I went to her physician and I was like, you know what? I want to get my daughter checked out for all things, right? Healthy. What does this look like for her? Because she's experiencing, different behavioral, I'm quoting that, issues. But, talk to me about her health. My daughter needed glasses.
Mm.
She has astigmatism, like her mama. She needed glasses. She was having, because she used to rub her eyes all the time. And I'd be like, what is wrong with your eyes? Are you not seeing what's going on with your eyes? She has astigmatism. She has to wear glasses. That's number one. Two, her dental health, right? She got to get braces now. She has braces now. But all of the food that she was eating, that when I talked about that processed food, that red 40, red dye 40, that's doing something to her hormones, you know. And then at 10, I know when I was 10, I wasn't developed. These children now are overly developed by the time they 9 and 10 years old, getting their menstrual early. Why would a young person be getting their menstrual that early on, right? I didn't get mine until I was like 12, around 12, 13, around the right age. But you have young children getting their, menstrual early. Processed food, all of these hormones that are in the food that we're not realizing. The chicken nuggets, we think it's a quick, easy meal. Well, we can make our own chicken nuggets, right? Farming, eating, things, whole grains from the, those organic, and you gotta be careful about the organic food too as well. But the nutrition that you're putting into your body, it is super important. So I do talk to my clients about, when's the last time you checked in with your physician? When's the last time you had your health screen? And they'll be like, why? I'm here because, we're talking about my mental health. I'm experiencing all this stress. Oh, okay. Well, stress comes differently. Talk to me about your daily, every day that you're doing. Well, I got to get up, I got to go to work. I got to be to work at this time. Then, my kids is this. And, then I get to work and then, my boss is making me frustrated. And, I have this, and then I got to consume myself with this work. Then I come home and then I'm sitting at, I got to do extra work. And I said, okay, stop. First off, you did not take a deep breath. I ain't hear a breath in that whole conversation because you just went through it. And what I didn't hear was, did you eat? And what did you eat? Oh, well, yeah. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I stopped at McDonald's. Oh, how often do you stop at McDonald's? How often do you cook your food? How often do you go to the grocery store and buy ingredients, fresh ingredients to make your food? How often do you take 10 minutes and sit uninterrupted, not on any work-related stuff, just sitting in your own space? How often do you do that? And a lot, majority, of clients and even the youth that I work with, there was like, I don't have time. Well, now we have to be intentional about making time for ourselves. Because just as fast as we gain these because a lot of the time that a lot of the complaints that I hear from clients and from young people is, oh my gosh, oh, I weigh too much. I got to lose weight. And so now we have these GLP-1s, easy quick fix shots to get us in.
Ozempic, that we
Ozempic,
go to the doctor.
Peptide,
Oh, yeah,
Wegovia, and all these things. But we haven't thought about,
the
well, how
side
long
effect.
did it take us to get to this weight that we were? It took years,
Yeah.
and it's going to take years to get it off. And we have to be intentional about getting it off. And that means changing the way we think, changing the way we eat, what we put in our body, and how we move. All of those things connect. When you talk about your mind, your health, and your wellness, we're a holistic. We're talking about the whole body, and even throwing in spiritual, right? If we want to do that, right? Because we're talking about everything, our beliefs, you know. And I'm not saying that we can't have no good old fashioned soul food. I'm not saying that. How are is the hands that are preparing it? How are we doing it? Get active back. I mean, I love cooking. I know for me, Sunday is a day that, the Lord's day for me, but I also take the time to cook. I bring my kids in the kitchen, the ones, two that are home with me. And I said, what are we going to cook this week? We'll go to the grocery store, we'll get the ingredients if we don't already have it. And we'll have a good time enjoying making the food because that's the enjoyment, of it. And so when we sit down to eat it, it's more enjoyable and we're being a little bit more mindful because then you can throw in some mental health techniques and be mindfulness eating. Take the time to eat my food instead of scarfing it down.
Right.
Take
Right.
the time and enjoy, and then we do a little activity like, well, what does it taste like? Oh, this is so good. What are you tasting on your tongue? You know, and then the other thing is, what do you smell? Let's tap into our five senses as we're cooking. What are we smelling? Again, so that we can be connected in one. So, the importance of how do we connect that mental health and that wellness of what we're doing into our bodies. That is how I, when in my, with my clients and with the youth that I work with, that is how I bring everything together. Being intentional about what you're putting in and what you're thinking, what you're feeling. We're going to connect to all five of our senses, and that's how we bring it all together.
I love that, and I definitely love how you mentioned the things that create stress. I don't think people understand
Mhm.
when they go to the doctor, their blood pressure is high. The elements that's causing their blood pressure to be high. Traffic. If you're fighting and arguing and cussing at traffic, it elevates your blood pressure. If you haven't eaten, that elevates your blood pressure. If you didn't sleep well, that elevates your blood pressure.
The
If
number
you
one,
stopped by McDonald's and you had they salty food, that elevates your blood pressure. And the doctors aren't going to tell you, the doctors, the nurse practitioners, the physician assistants aren't going to tell you or ask you, okay, well, how was your morning, your commute before getting here?
right?
Or let's check it again after you relax. Or people who have the fear of doctors, it
Mm,
elevates their blood pressure.
right,
So
right.
those questions aren't asked because oftentimes we immediately trust and believe, oh well the
Mhm.
doctor knows why my blood pressure is high, but those
Yes,
questions are never asked and they're immediately thrown on blood pressure medication.
right,
But you may not all the time need it. It
right.
could have been because I know for myself, I'm not a morning person and I don't always eat breakfast. And I'm rushing, driving through to get to appointments and I'm cussing at traffic. I got post traumatic stress from car accidents. So of course
Mm,
it's gonna
yeah,
elevate my blood pressure. But I think those are the things that need to be asked, hey, can you wait a minute before you check my blood pressure? Because I just got here. I need to, kind of calm down. Or if you've been sitting in the waiting room for 30 damn minutes to an hour just to be called back, that can elevate your blood pressure as well. Because
Right, right.
I've experienced that.
Yeah, or
Oh
worrying
yeah,
about
worrying.
things that are out of our control. And we see a lot of people coming in worrying about the future. Especially with this climate of the world that we're in right now. A lot of people are worried about food insecurity, housing stability. How I'm going to pay. I know for me, how I'm gonna pay for this girl to go to school. Okay,
Oh yeah.
but
And you got what, graduation
right,
and
yeah,
prom
yeah,
and
all of
all
that,
this stuff coming up. Yeah.
right. So it's a lot of things that contribute those things. But again, I always tell my clients and I always tell my youth, I said, let's start creating a circle of support because there's somebody for somebody, right? You know, I know I can call on this person for that money, that tangible part, right? I'd always, I don't want to abuse it, but I know that if anything push come to worst, I know that person always has me financially, right? Again, we're not depending on this person. We just know, again, in our circle of network, because we got a circle of friends. We know who to call. We can vent, cuss out, and they won't judge us, right? Same thing with resources, right? Who can I reach out to for my resources? Who are my trusted people that I trust in that circle that are going to be pouring into me no matter what, just as much as I pour into them. It's important to have that. Um, because when life does be life, and I'd be like, oh, life be life, because we all say it, we all know it. Again, we're all human. How are we able to disconnect and then come back? Who's pouring into us just as much as we're pouring into them? And so that's taking, I tell my clients as well, hey, stop. Take your lunch break. Everybody has a break. I want you to be intentional about taking your lunch break. And if that means getting your butt up out your chair, going outside and going sitting in your car, do that. If it means getting up and getting out of the space that you're in and going to another space for that lunch period, do it. But even if things are intense throughout the day, like you're stressing out, you're in a meeting, you're about to go into a meeting, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, whatever the case may be, give yourself 10 minutes. If you can't give 10 minutes, give yourself 5. And just sit in that space for 5 minutes. I'll send it like the Calm at Headspace has it. All of these little different meditation or phone a friend. Hey, I just needed to talk to you. Really. I just wanted to hear your voice, see how you're doing. I'm about to go into this meeting. Utilize those I statements, right? Talk about how what feeling are you identifying with? What emotion, are you expressing right now? Like, what is going on with you right now? Phone a friend. I'm frustrated right now. I'm sad right now, and I just needed to hear your voice, just kind of connect for a little bit. And that person's voice on the other end may soothe you down, bring you back down. It may not change the circumstances that you're about to walk into, but it will lessen that intention, that intensity, for you to be able to go about your day. When we talk about love languages and healthy relationships, girl, I can go into so much. Like, we're going to have another day for this.
Right.
But,
Yeah,
but when we talk about healthy relationships and connecting, right? All you have to do sometimes is just say hello to people. I say this often, like, you never know how you're going to brighten someone's day just by telling them, hi, how are you doing today? I'll be walking down the street. I'll pass somebody. I'm like, hi, how are you today? The people looking at me like, what the? But you know what? I put some thought into their head, and it made them think, well, how am I doing today? Tag, nobody's asked me that today. And it felt good that somebody even acknowledged and saw me and asked that to me today. Even because I know everybody knows me, like, I'm not a morning person. My mind don't wake up. Literally, my mind doesn't wake up until 10 o'clock. Like, 10 o'clock is when I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I can get it in, pop, 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 pop. And trust me, by the time I get home, I'm already ready to wind back down, right? But um, I always speak to people. I think it's just so wonderful just to say hello, because sometimes that breaks the ice for somebody to then become more self-aware about themselves. Like, tag, I am not feeling well today. She asked me that. Wow. Let me think about how I'm feeling, and then they can go on. So we want to label those feelings. We want to be able to do that for ourselves, and that's how we can continue to be self-aware and continue to connect all those things together.
And I would also say, please go to the bathroom because
Yes.
them UTIs ain't fun.
What?
So I used to get them all the time at PSI because I'll be trying to do them notes. And I'm like, oh, I'll go in a minute. Man, I had so many freaking UTIs that jacked my back up. I could not move. I felt paralyzed. Please go to the
Go
bathroom.
take that, because that's also your health, women's health, right?
Oh,
You're having these issues and we're not realizing that, bacteria, that's
that
about
can
your
kill you.
wellness, that
Yeah,
can kill you. And
yeah.
so we're not realizing that it's important, drinking your water. Like, as soon as we're done here, I'm about to go fill my water bottle up. This is my faithful, I have to, and I'm getting, again, creating habits, being intentional. That is how you create a habit, by being intentional, having someone that you trust to hold you accountable. Now, I'm at this point where, there's a lot of people holding me accountable, but I'm also holding myself accountable because I'm being truthful with myself. And I think that's where we have to start, is being truthful with ourselves, looking in the mirror at ourselves and saying, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to do for ourselves. And just, I mean, and it's hard to be honest because there's so many other factors out here. There's so many other things that we see that we're trying. Nah, there's only one Kemah Gbolokai, only one KGB diva. Hashtagged, coined it, trademarked it. Boom, bop, bada, bang. And so I'm gonna live this best life the best way I know how, and that's just being my authentic self, giving what I want to receive to others, pouring into them like they are pouring into me, being around positive energy because I'm giving out positive energy. That is how I'm living my life. That is how I'm healing. And that is how that's me.
And I love how you said, I do that too. I can go in a grocery store or any store and I'll ask the clerk how they're doing. And most of the time, I've gotten people that say, thank you for asking that. Nobody's asked
Mhm.
me or even spoke to me today because we don't look at them as people. And they're
Right.
people. You never know. You may be in that position, you doing that same job, and you do not want to treat people like they don't matter because you
Right.
definitely don't want to be treated like that. So I get that all the time. I do Uber. I get people and I always ask them like, "Hey, how you doing?" They'll, sometimes I become LaJune therapist LaJune, and I'm like, I just asked you how you was. Like, I'm
Yes.
oh, okay, but I also realize it's a lot of people that don't have someone to listen to them, and
Mm.
they don't have that support. And I always put myself in that position that okay, this person may not have anybody to talk to, and they have something on their mind and their heart that they need to get off, and they're trusting me to tell me this stuff, even though they may never see me again.
Right.
So I always look at it like that because a lot of people don't have support. A lot of people
Hmm.
don't have someone who genuinely cares, even if it's for 15 minutes, 30
Right.
minutes, an
Right.
hour, however long that trip is. Always keep that in mind that they may not have anybody because oftentimes we do feel, a lot of people feel alone that they don't
Yes.
have anybody.
Yeah.
So, this is also Autism Awareness Month. And what advice or suggestion would you give to a mother who is finding out? that their child is diagnosed, because I work with a lot of moms with special need kids,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the time the mom feel like they're to blame, and with that they hold that blame, that guilt,
Right.
um, which they don't understand their kids can feel that energy,
Yeah.
and they don't really, they coddle them, and they don't set them up for success, because I've also seen the adult side of what happens with that when a
Right. Right.
parent dies and they're in a group home and they're mistreated. So, what advice or suggestions you would give them?
So one of the things I would give moms who are seeing signs in their children, they may have not met the milestones. They're seeing things that are not at that normal at that age that they that they should not be doing at that age. Best thing is to talk to their physician. Come with a list of questions. I'm telling you, you are your child's biggest cheerleader. You are their biggest advocate. They can't speak for themselves. They're still learning. And I'm not saying because they can't talk. I mean, we do have some children that are on a level where they cannot speak. So, but I'm just saying, just in general, you're the parent. You have to fight for your kid because no one else is fighting for them. And when I tell you that they know when Miss Gbolokai is coming, they know when I'm coming. A little quick story. I sat in my daughter's IEP meeting because I've been battling trying to get her services in school. It started off with a 504, and I was just like, this 504 is not working. I said, it's just not, and they do a 504 review every year. So I said, no, I want her to get tested. I said, this is her last year in elementary school. I want her to get tested. And so they were like, well, you have that right. I'm gonna send you the paperwork. Well, let's do this first. I said, no, you're not gonna chuck and jive me any longer. I know my rights. I know how to read very well. I want her to get tested. They were like, all right, Miss Gbolokai. And when we went and they got tested, they did all the things that they were supposed to do. I sat in that meeting. I asked every question. I read through every last page of that IEP. And if I didn't read and just signed, I would have had them labeling my child as quirky. I need you to take that out of her IEP. Well, we wanted to use that as a description. Excuse me, you're not going to put quirky in my child's IEP. Use a thesaurus, find another word, but you're not going to put a label on my child because that's a negative label that then she's going to now have to follow. And then I guess the one of the other the person from the middle school who where she's going to was on this call, and I guess she jumped in. Well, she did jump in late. She says, yeah, so we see that your daughters are quirky. I said, excuse me? She says, oh, I said, we're not using that word. That word has been taken out. Oh, well, it's in here. Again, it will be updated. It will be taken out. You're going to refer to her by her name or a characteristic that is positive and uplifting and empowering for her because she's going into middle school. And the services that were in elementary school are different. And we want to prepare her, not hinder her, and put her in a box where she feels she can push forward and advocate for herself. So the principal, the assistant principal at the elementary school, said, we're going to definitely miss you, Miss Gbolokai. And one thing that I learned from you is to advocate for your children. And you have done a really good job of advocating for your daughter these last 4 years that she's been with us. And I appreciate you and thank you for it and keep doing what you're doing. I said, I don't know any other way but to. Because again, legacy. That is what I'm leaving. And I want to make sure that my children know how to advocate for themselves in this world so that they don't end up in power and control relationships. They end up in healthy relationships. They end up in healthy, workspaces where they're not workplace bullying isn't going on. So that they have that voice. So that if they do get in a space where they may potentially get sexually harassed or microaggressions may show up, that they're able to advocate for themselves in a way that is a respect for themselves and that other people see that. So when I think about parents and children that may have, disabilities or have, special accommodations or things like that, you be up in every last meeting, you ask every last question. I've even gone far as I used to do observations in my children's classrooms, all of them when they were in elementary school. I would go in maybe once a month and do observations. I would volunteer, um, to go on field trips. That's where I wasn't able to attend you with you last Friday because I was on my daughter's field trip. That was her last field trip of her elementary school year. I wanted to go, volunteer at the school. Now the thing is that people say, "Well, I can't do that because I got to work 2 and 3 jobs." Intentional. You have to be intentional. And yes, I was a single mother. I was a single mother raising 3 children by myself with no assistance or help from the fathers. And it was at some point it defeated me because I would find myself in these, ad hoc relationships that, I thought were going to break me. But in the midst of that, I had to realize that, my children are very important and I have to be intentional to set examples for them. I had to shift the patterns that they were seeing in our home. And by doing that, I had to make time, be intentional. Just like we're making time for our mental health, we're making time for our physical health. We have to make time for our children's well being, all of that. And there may be some times where we can't go to a production or an event for them here or there. That's fine, right? But when it comes to their education and what's needed for them, we have to be at the forefront. We have to be the ones that are cheering as loud as possible. So that, and we also need to make those connections and collaborations with the schools and the teachers, right? Because it's not just, because you'll hear this teacher say, oh, these parents don't get involved. And you'll hear the parents say, oh, these teachers are, no, we collaborate. Those are one things. I always meet my kids' teachers. I go to parent-teacher conferences. I meet the principal because it's a collaborative effort. They're with my kids, 6 hours out of the day? Or 8 hours out the day? That's a long time. That's the other parent, right? So I want to collaborate with them. Let me know if my child is not doing well. Call me, send me an email. I want to support you in that classroom because my kids are getting the education. Because I always tell my kids, you use the teacher for what you need them for. And that's that information, that knowledge. So you ask every question, even if it may sound quote unquote dumb, or stupid, I don't even like those words, but ask the question. Because if you don't understand, how are you going to walk out with your head high? And how am I going to reinforce it when you get home if you don't understand it, right? And you're not asking the questions. So empowering your kids as well. So that's my takeaway for when we talk about parents with, children with special needs, or they may feel that they are afraid to ask for that help. You have rights as parents to make sure that your children get the proper education that they need. And if you can't get it from the public school, there's ways to get them in private school. There's scholarships, there's, people rallying around to help you get to that, organizations to get your kid in that space so that they get the education they need. So.
And that is so true because there's so many kids that are just being passed and they don't do anything. Is, so many kids that's in special ed that don't need to be in special ed.
Right.
They just didn't have, a Kemah mom to advocate for them. They had a parent that's like, oh, okay, well, no, some of these kids are
Right.
extremely smart. They may just have some delays. I was working with a client and I noticed she was writing her numbers the opposite way and her letters the opposite way. And I said something to the mom, and the mom, she starts crying. I was like, "Do you feel like this is your fault?" And she was like, "Yeah." I said, "No, this is not your fault. Now it's time to advocate and fight for your child because your child is very young. So let's fight for her." She makes a appointment with the school. The school and the principal, the teacher and the principal said, "Oh yeah, we did notice her B's. She was confusing her B's and D's." She
Mm.
and they told her, "Well, she should be fine. She's going to elementary school." And she was like, "What do you think?" I think that if you wouldn't have said anything, they would have never told you that, and they would have
Wow.
just passed her along. Let's not have no child left behind, because I'm doing Uber and I get people in the back. Somebody said Mexico was in the United States, and I was like, what?
I
Yeah.
can get I can get how they would say that.
But the education system is supposed to make sure they know
Right, right, right.
the difference from New Mexico to
And Mexico.
Mexico.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I yes.
Yeah. So that was, my thing. It was just like, no, you need to contact your pediatrician. You need to get her eyes and her ears checked and
Absolutely.
kind of go from there. And that's kind of what they told her was, oh, well, you need to contact your pediatrician. I told her, I said, no, if you even need to talk to the superintendent and get them involved, it needs to be a IEP created for her because she needs help. And she's like, oh, okay, okay. And I'm like, we got to start advocating and not just letting stuff go.
Right. And
And
then, you know, yep, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's one of those things that we, again, my favorite word, intentional. We have to be intentional. And again, there's, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. There's, no cookie cutter thing of how to do things. Every situation is different. But as long as we are doing what's in the best interest of the children and we are advocating for them, um, all things will come out. Because sometimes we'll be like, oh, why do we think about doing that? That's not right. The kid is going to, sometimes, some decisions have to be made. And that's the difficult part. And as parents, I can't stress enough, as parents, we are our children's first cheerleader and advocate. But then we also have to remember, this is, like I said, we can go on for hours, but learn behavior. You know, a lot of times we didn't grow up in a household where we were taught what healthy looks like. Going back to what I said, are you healed?
right,
You know, some people don't know what healed looks like because they don't know what that looks like because of the environment that they were in. They only know what was taught to them and they think that that is correct. And so, how in therapy we are reframing those thoughts, those negative thoughts that the client has been stating. I'm not good enough. I'm ugly. I'm afraid. That triggered me. Well, let's talk about that. Let's get underneath and see how we can relearn healthiness. And that's hard. That is hard because, some of us are, 30s and 30s, years old and over. And it's like, I don't got time for all that. That's why going to therapy sometimes can be a struggle to go to therapy because it's like, I don't ask for I don't ask help from other people. I can do it myself. Let me tell you something. The biggest lesson I learned is Closed mouths don't get fed on the boulevard.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm going to, because I was one of those people that didn't ask for help. So I sat in silence. I suffered in silence because I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know who to ask for help. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. Those are all negative thoughts that I spring seeds that I had sat in my head that, people have told me, you ain't nothing. You ugly. Girl, sit your fat tail down. You eat too much. These were things that, were taught in my head. Like, oh girl, you ain't gonna have nobody that loves you. These were things that were repeatedly said. And that emotional abuse. And it wasn't just from partners. These are family members. These are, people that I considered friends. They was in the background wishing for my downfall while they sneaking, gaslighting me. And again, these are all about power and control. But once you become self-aware and you're able to say, you know what? I see you. Thank you for showing me who you really are. I appreciate that because now I know how to move. I know how to dance in the rain now. The storms can come, but I know how to dance in the rain. And I'm going to get through it because I'm healing. And it feels so good to be in the space that I'm in today in 2026. So when I get to that 45, you ain't going to sell me nothing. But this has been definitely a joy. Like I said, I am so honored. Thank you so much, LaJune.
You are welcome. Can you tell people where they can find you and the clients, if you're taking any clients, what clients population do you serve?
So, yes, Onyx Therapy Group. Go to onyxtherapygroup.org or .com. Sorry, onyxtherapygroup.com. And go under team clinical team. My bio is there. And you know what? And you may see somebody other than me that strikes your interest. Read the bios. Look, go to our Instagram page. Check out what we're putting out. Because I may not be a fit for you, and that's okay. But I want to make sure that you get to the right fit of a clinician to help you in your healing journey. That's what this is about, right? And I just love it. And we have wonderful clinicians that are there. So you can, but if you want to look for me, I'm on there. I'm on Psychology Today. You can look me up. And the clients that I serve. So I love my empowering my ladies. If you are a domestic violence survivor or any type of trauma, I'm here for that. Children, I do work with children as well. If you want to do a specialty at EMDR, trauma focused type of service, I do that as well. I work with couples, my LGBTQ plus community. We out here. Um, and co-occurring. Um, Anyone coming out of the prison system and transitioning back into the community, I'm here for it. So yeah, I'm here. It's all about healing.
I love that. And can you spell Onyx for the people because they may not know how to spell it correctly?
Yes. So let me Onyx.
They be like, she said Onyx. How you spell?
How I spell Onyx? Like so yes, Onyx Therapy Group. So let me be correct in the spelling so that we are all on the same page.
That's where you have people pissed off and sending comments, be like, well, she said, and I'm
Onyx, so ONYX, Onyx
all right. So that's
Therapy
it.
Group. So
So,
Onyx Therapy Group.
all right. That's where you can find her, Psychology Today and
Yep.
Onyx Therapy Group. And People, please, 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 if you go to her or somebody else that you feel is not a fit, that does not mean that, oh, well, I don't need therapy. No, that means you just have not found the right therapist that fits
Right.
your needs.
Yep.
And that's a great match for you. Because I'm telling you, in 2022, I went through, I felt like 10 of them. So until I found the right one that I work with.
And
So,
that's what you got to do. You got to
yeah,
find who's best for you. I always say, like, when you're looking for a therapist, it's like you're interviewing. You're interviewing somebody because this person, you're about to become vulnerable with them. You're going to be in this space with them every week for an hour or maybe 2, 3 times a week. They're going to be supporting you, and you have to be able to connect. That's why my sessions are a conversation. We're not laying on no couch like this and saying, tell me what you're feeling today. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, we're not doing it. We're having dialogue. We want to laugh. I want to laugh with you. I want to, talk about what's going on. How is life? What are some lows that we need to really work on that they want to work on? And I'm gonna bring it full circle. Sometimes sometimes we feel like the therapist should be doing most of the talking. I need to hear you.
yeah.
This is
Ain't no
you.
point you going if you just listen to the therapist
And,
talk. No.
and I'm not gonna tell you what to do either. Here is just, the format to come outside the light, but sitting back and enjoying the ride and being there to support them on that journey. That's what I'm here for. And that's what a therapist should be there for, you know. Um, so yeah. But again, I'm honored, LaJune. I appreciate you for allowing me to be here today. Like when I tell you, when you hit me up, I was like, what? She remembers me. This is so, and I've been like, this is so weird. Like, oh my gosh, I appreciate. Look, when I tell you, I appreciate you.
You're so
You
welcome.
are amazing. I
Thank
truly appreciate you, and I thank you for just being who you are and just allowing others to have this platform. You're an amazing woman, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for your vulnerability. Off the time, a lot of people like, well, I don't know if I should be that vulnerable, but it helps people look and see other professionals and their vulnerability and what they are overcoming and healing from. So thank you so much for that because it's not an easy journey and it's not a, oh, well, I'm just perfect and putting a mask on because that mask is what's destroying you. So
Right.
take that mask off and let people know, you know what? I'm healing from whatever was holding me back, but that's not who I am anymore. So
Yep.
as she said, you can find her at Psychology Today or Onyx Therapy Group. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Onyx Therapy Group for services. As she said, if it's not with her, please find somebody who can help you on your next journey. And you can find me at lajunesingleton.com as well as all the social platforms. Until next time, Mind, Health, and Wellness with LaJune. You guys be blessed and have a great week.